She's the only woman that seems to be a shield maiden that goes with the guys. Are we going to see other women maybe?
Yes, there actually were at least two shooting. Yeah, there was another woman. She was a stunt double that got cast as a female shield maiden, as a female Viking in the battlefield, and there were women that would fight, so hopefully it wasn't the only one, or it wasn't shown as Agatha being the only one who fights, but I'm not sure how much you'll see as the series goes on, but yes, many women actually fought.
How was it learning how to fight, basically, with the shield and the sword and everything?
Definitely different. I come from a martial art background, so kicking and punching and using your hands and your feet was more of the art that I was taught, and a shield and a sword was a new form of weaponry that I wasn't used to, and but the spirit of combat was similar in terms of fighting and being a strong character, so that was similar in terms of my martial art training.
Were you aware when you first joined the series how rigorous it was going to be for you physically?
Was I aware? No, actually. I thought when you get the script, you don't know how much of it is going to be action or not. It wasn't so much written. The battle scenes weren't written in the first two scripts that I got initially, and it wasn't part of the casting process. It was just more they were focusing on really just hiring actors, good actors. But I love that stuff. I love being physical, and for me it's such a treat to actually get a chance to use some of my martial art background with a multi-layered character. So I loved it. It was great.
Well, we heard the filming conditions were kind of harsh as well.
Oh yeah, I was shooting in Ireland with the different multi-climates, and up in the hills, and being the only girl, like guys, could go to the loo just in the mountains, and being a woman with all these, especially my costume was all laced, and Joan, who's the costume designer, she was kept it very authentic and wanted everything as authentic as possible, so it took about 20 minutes to get me in and out of that thing just to use the ladies' room, but it all helped in terms of shaping the character and to dive into a different era.
It feels very rustic. It looks like there's an awful lot of mud being employed just because of the conditions.
Which is so great, though. The dirtier, the better.
Yeah.
The less makeup, the better. The more raw we are, the better. And it was so great just working with. I was the only girl on set for the first 3 months, and they wouldn't make fun of me if I, asked for, can you check my hair? So I definitely had to put away the vanity, but that's the stuff that I actually like, because it helped not forget that you're shooting something and help really live in the moment and be. That was a treat.
Did you ever work with the costume designer a little bit to make it so the costuming was a little more useful, so you could move around and do certain maneuvers?
Exactly, we did. She built it around my body, and by piece, my warrior costume, for example, there had to be a lot of freedom in the leather she used that I can move, and same with the legs. It wasn't necessarily as fitted. The only fitted part would be the belt, the corset, which she was so great about making it very personable, and actually there was a raven that was just sketched in, and so everything was very detailed and very specific and all handmade, and so much time and effort and care went into every piece of clothing and every article of clothing that it just helped us. It really did.
Any injuries? Did you hurt yourself in the battle scene?
Did they say anything? I died on set. No, it's true. We were shooting this big battle scene up in the Guinness Estate in these mountains and in the middle of nowhere, and I remember I asked the AD, I'm like, listen, I need to use the ladies' room, and of course the guys, being Vikings, they can go in the bushes, but of course being a lady Viking, it's not proper. So they had to transport me from one location to another in this mini Jeep, I guess, and we were shooting a scene where I had a long cloak tied around my neck, and all of a sudden I was driving and I'm like, my neck started tensing, and I'm like, I can't breathe. I held on, and my cloak got caught in the back wheel of the buggy.
Oh my God.
As I was driving forward, and lucky enough, it actually ripped off. So I came on set, had a mark from here all the way to here. And I came on set, and I'm talking to my cast members. I'm like, help me. It's like I was in shock. and I could barely breathe. And they started laughing. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know you're shooting that fight scene today. They thought it was just makeup." And because I'm a Viking, you get bloody scars everywhere. And I'm like, "No, really." I heard they're like, "Yeah, you know, you that's great." They're looking at their pages and realize that my big fight scene. I'm like, "No, really, this is what happened." But it was all part of the experience, and it could have been a lot worse.
So they have a cloak wrangler now, probably. Make sure you don't get injured again.
Right. So if you notice, my character actually ends up wearing scarves that didn't exist then in the Vikings. So every time you see my character wear something around her neck, it's because we had to hide my neck injury. But if anything, it all helped with all the battle ones.
Can you talk about this? Maybe some of the central themes that your character is going to go through in the second half of the season. With your husband.
Lagertha's character definitely is challenged. She struggles with a lot of conflicts within her relationship with Ragnar, but is also within the community and being a young mother as well. As Ragnar gets more status and becomes king of the Viking tribe, her family rises in rank, and there's a lot more responsibility and a lot more conflicts within the community that Lagertha has to deal with, especially when her husband goes off to raids. So that was very fascinating for me, because starting off as a farmer and a warrior, a young mother, then all of a sudden getting in a different environment and different clothes and different status and different have a say in the community, political say, was interesting and challenging. But I think that her core personality really, as a shield mating, also being very strong, helped with that responsibility and that conflict.
But then there's this square peg with Athelstan that comes in, and he's got to be such a different type of puzzle for her.
Yes, I think originally she's used to seeing slaves, but having such a foreigner. But she does trust him. She keeps him in his place, but she did trust her kids with him. She is someone that would do anything to protect her family and do anything to protect her relationship. She truly does love Ragnar to death, and it's literally, maybe, no, I'm just kidding. But they're equals and they're partners, and I don't want to give up too much, so I'm kind of dancing around that question.
The sex is a little confusing, because there was a scene where Rollo wanted to have sex with her, and she put him off for that. And yet there's the other scene when Ragnar comes and invites Athelstan into bed with them.
Well, the Vikings were very free people in terms of their sexuality, and even the scene when Rollo comes in and asks Bjorn, "Where are your parents?" and he's like, "Oh, they're having sex." It was part of their culture to be open with their bodies. But I do believe that she really it's a love match with her and Ragnar. And to answer your question, I think you just don't know. I think that's what's great about it. Are they teasing? Were they just testing Athelstan, or were they actually inviting Athelstan to their bed? So that's left for your imagination.
Has it been interesting to learn about the Norse culture in terms of like the standing of women and what kind of power they wield in that culture?
Oh yeah, it's definitely.
Do you have like a appreciation for sort of?
It's really fascinating to realize and to discover that women had a lot of status and power in the Dark Ages. They're very strong, and were allowed to be equals with their husbands. Were allowed to be mothers and warriors, also own land and protect their land, and divorce their husbands, and eventually rule. So that all that status and power was really liberating and very empowering to know that women were really celebrated in that time period. I think it went a few steps backwards, obviously, as time, if you look at our history, but in the Viking culture, women were toe-to-toe with the guys. Yeah, one more minute.
Is there anything you can tell us about Donalod's character?
Oh, I love him. He's great. I'm not going to say much. I'm not going to say much about that because I don't think I'm allowed to give up any spoilers. But he's great to work with. He's one of my favorite people on set. He's just hilarious. And I think everybody, all his fans would really love to see him in this character.
I think we were all rooting for him. He did awesome.
Yeah. Oh, you will. He's great. He's fantastic.
Does Lagartha come from a different clan? Because there was something that Rollo said that made it sound like he felt she was an outsider.
In what way?
Like her
From another
people-
tribe, another clan.
Yeah, something.
What's great about that the Viking community have different clans everywhere. You know, it's really within your community. Each village is different, and they work together as a community. So her background, I would assume she has her own family, and she joined Ragnar, and they built a. You know, they've been together for a very long time, obviously, and started off as young kids.